I'll use the mic at the end. This brings us to the conclusion of the day's agenda. I'm not going to be quiet here. This microphone is just too touch and go. So this brings us to the end of our agenda. I'd like to thank you all for coming today. Now, we've learned a lot. There's a lot that went down today. We learned about how to be an activist. We learned about how to have fun with liberty, how to come up with libertarian solutions. We learned about how to run for office. We learned how you can help with the state party. We learned tricks and techniques for debating. We learned so many things. But there's one thing that you didn't learn here today, something you can't necessarily learn today, and that is to know yourself. Because if you're going to get out there in the political world, you really, really need to know yourself. You need to understand yourself, your motivations, your limits. Because I can tell you from cold, hard experience that you are going to run into situations that you have never even dreamed of before. You are going to be humbled beyond belief by your mistakes. You are going to be surprised and elated by finding new strength and new ideas and new wisdom that you never suspected you had. When you're involved in the political arena, the highs are incredibly high, but the lows are equally incredibly low. There's going to be too much to do, far beyond your ability to do it. I guarantee you. I promise you. And I have a standard trick. I went and I got this for my grandkids. Imagine that you have a piece of board with balls on it. And your goal is to sit there, stand there, and get all these balls on there, and keep them all on there at once, and not let them fall off. Well, I can guarantee you, it's not going to work. You're going to watch as things that you know you can do, things that you know need to get done, you're going to stand there and watch as they fall off the edge of your board. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt bad. The reason why you're going to do that is because you have to set priorities. A political campaign or any political activity will eat up your entire life if you let it. Everything about it. You have to set clear priorities early. And me, my first political race back in 1994, the first time I ran for state representative, I remember sitting on the bed, leaning against the dresser, my head against it, saying to my wife, "This is too much. This is too much." And it will be. Priorities I set that day: family first, job second, politics third. And I had to keep reminding myself, family first, family first, family first. I would take one day a week off. I didn't care what was going on. I would have a ball that would be about to fall off the table. I was with my family that day. I would toss that ball away. Because it doesn't matter if you win the election, if you wind up getting divorced. It doesn't matter if you stop a tax increase, if you get fired. Family, jobs, politics. You will find yourself doing things you never even thought about doing. Things like speaking in public, organizing events, organizing volunteers, motivating volunteers, being what they call a leader. These are extraordinary skills that most people do not possess. These are not the things that they teach at a public school or government school. These are the sorts of things that are just beyond the normal person. Where do you learn these things? Either by the school of hard knocks. Maybe you get it right or maybe you don't. The way that I learned them was at Toastmasters. For those of you who don't know, Toastmasters is an international organization. The mission is to provide a supportive environment for learning public speaking and leadership skills. I used to be scared to death to speak in public. My heart would go doo-doo. I would have asthma attacks just talking to my congressman. But with Toastmasters, I was able to learn how to speak in public, to learn how to control my butterflies and get them to fly in formation, Now I'm at the point I don't even get nervous when I get up and speak in public anymore. I can now talk to a crowd of thousands on national television just as easily and capably as I'm talking to you people sitting right here in front of me. You learn all the tricks of the trade. You learn to think fast on your feet. So when the guy says, "Do you cheat on your wife?" your brain doesn't seize up. We practice at Toastmasters every meeting, impromptu speaking, where you're hit with a question cold, and you have to answer it in a minute. Now, doesn't that sound like a campaign trail? It's the exact same thing. You learn all sorts of other things. Little tricks, like eye contact with the audience. Making sure everybody feels that they're part of you talking to them. Like you're talking to them one-on-one, not one to a crowd. You learn how to make gestures, when to make gestures, what to do with your hands. You learned how to structure your speeches so that you get your point out and you communicate effectively. One thing I learned from Bill Clinton, when somebody asked him a question, when they would finish, he would stop. And he would count to 3. You could see him mentally counting to 3 before he'd start answering. It's a little trick. There are thousands of these little tricks that you learn in Toastmasters. And when you get up to the debates and you start answering questions, people are going to look at you and say, "Wow, that guy's good." But they're not going to be able to say why. They're just going to see a polish that other people don't have. And that came out of my governor debate. They said I was absolutely the best speaker on the stage. It's about 9 months from now until the election. If you're planning on running this year, 9 months is more than enough time. Join Toastmasters. Do it today. Go out to Toastmasters.org. Find a club near you. There are over 200,000 Toastmasters around the planet. There's got to be a club nearby you. Join it now. Within 3 months, I guarantee you'll be a much, much better speaker. Within 6 months, you'll be formidable. Within a year, you'll stand head and shoulders above the crowd. I consider myself a product, final product, of Toastmaster training. So there it is. Know yourself. Know your limits. Learn how to communicate. Use Toastmasters. Before I close off this fine workshop, organizational workshop, are there any closing questions? Hearing none. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank the online audience for being alongside of us.
All 58 of them.
All 58 of them?
Yes.
That's pretty good for online. And then there's going to be all the views that are going to come after this. Jim, you were asking before about how we influence the public. There's 58 answers right there. With that, again, one last sentence to say. Because this isn't about me or Jim or Darren or any of our speakers here today. It's about you. Remember the mantra of the grassroots activists. 10 words, 2 letters each. If it is to be, it is up to me, or up to us. For that, I leave it up to you. Thank you for your time. Our last thing for today is our Libertarian Roundtable. What I'd like to do is invite all of our speakers back up, and we'll take any questions that the audience may have.